Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and KWBY, and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
And welcome into Life Planning 101 right here on KATX KWBY. Terry Slavens with you. And as usual, Angela Kennedy Robinson here to share a bunch of great information with us. And she has a special guest on the phone with us from Colorado.
Yes, that is right. Up bright and early this morning to join us at 7:30 Mountain Time. So we appreciate Mr. Steve Markin for being on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Steve.
And, good morning, Angela. Great to be here.
Yes, thank you. And we're coming off the holidays, and we thought you were the perfect guest as we enter in the week after Thanksgiving, when we've all foundered on turkey and we spent good quality time with our families. And what a blessing! Just and I know if your family's like mine, we always say a moment of gratitude. We go around and say something that we're grateful for, and it's pretty special time for most families to be able to do that. And so, we thought, what a better way to get Monday kicked off before the Christmas holidays, when people have family top of mind, than with someone that's what kind of business they're in. They're in the business of keeping families together. And right. So, a couple weeks ago, had a client in. We were talking to a family, and they said, both of our kids are responsible, but they don't get along, and we have no idea what to do for an executor on our estate. We don't have a clue what to do for trustees on our estate, because they'll end up hating each other by the end of this. And, they came to a realization real quickly, but, something that most people don't either want to think about, or maybe don't choose to think about, or just say, oh, it'll be fine, is picking those two people when it comes to their estate planning. Kind of old rule of thumb, you hear it all the time, well, who do you want to name? And they pick one of two people. It's either their oldest child or the most responsible child.
Right.
And, you wrote a great story, Steve, and I'm going to let you tell this story, but, that involves just this. And like I say, it's a great topic as we go through the holidays and we think about what do we want these holidays to continue to be like after we're gone with our families, right? So just to kind of introduce Steve, though, for just a second, he is, Steve, again, we appreciate your time. We know you're very, very busy, especially this time of year. Steve's an accomplished attorney. He's actually a consultant to wealth managers all over the country, which is wonderful. And, his whole purpose behind what he does is integrating a family's financial, human, and social capital. And I think that's very powerful. So many people just come at estate planning from a legal perspective, when really that's not why you get it done. Most of the time it's to be able to protect your family. And he has an accomplished professional in law, tax, finance, philanthropy, and he's going to share some of that with us today. He's also the president of a 501c3 organization called Stewardship Council. It collaboratively supports and works through a national network of skilled professionals that focus just on this, assisting families and foundations with the professional advisor community and proactively addressing these character and relational challenges that are often encountered with meaningful wealth. And it also simultaneously establishes an inspiration and responsibility of stewardship for family legacy, which is awesome. So Steve also serves in the capacity as a professional trustee, a private trustee through professional advisors throughout the country. So we really, really appreciate your time, Steve. And we always say at Kennedy Financial Services that what we bring to the table more than anything is experiences that we've we've had with the families we worked with over the last 28 years. And I can only imagine these experiences that you've had. So enlighten us. Share some things with us that you feel like people really need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. And it's true. I do have a lot of experiences, both good and bad. The story that you alluded to was a story that unfortunately happens quite a bit with families. As they structure their estate, as you said, they oftentimes will put either the oldest or the most responsible member of their family in that position of the estate fiduciary. And oftentimes that can be just fine. And certainly they're thinking about who should be that one, oldest or certainly the most responsible, is perhaps good thinking. But what is oftentimes overlooked and missed is it's not the person that's in that spot. It might be the others that are around that family. And I can just tell you, serving families all across the country in this regard, that if you get that wrong, the impact is devastating to the family and the relationship. And this story is one of many where the family did just that. They put their oldest son, who is also the most responsible, in that position of the state fiduciary. Mom and dad began to age. They began to suffer from dementia. And so he had to get involved in managing their financial affairs. They went on and continued to age, and the father passed first, mother then second, and his roles and responsibilities changed at that point. Now he had to go, instead of managing their financial affairs, really to gather their estate together, take care of their final bills, and then ultimately get to that point of disbursement. But what happened in the meantime is he had a sister, and the sister, she had what I think most would say a love of money. And the most important thing to her, as her mom and dad were aging, was not really her care. It was more so, what's happening to my money, my inheritance? And so the son, like I said, responsible. In fact, he had a lot of responsibility outside of his responsibility to his mom and dad that he stepped in that role. He was running a couple businesses. He had a family, so he also had a responsibility as a husband and as a father. So his life was busy even before he stepped into that role of fiduciary. And as these events began to occur, he did the best he could when he could. In the meantime, his sister, because he was not reporting to her as much as she would have liked, she then began to get suspicious because her objective was, I want my money. And she ultimately went to an attorney, got an attorney, and now the communication really got complicated. He then had to get an attorney himself, so you can just imagine the tension,
and the cost,
the amount of money that's expended, and ultimately the relationship that completely went away. Ultimately, the estate was resolved. He did nothing bad. She got her estate inheritance, but the thing that certainly their mom and dad wanted most was gone, and that was the relationship, the continued relationship of the family.
What a sad story.
Wow, that is very, very sad.
And the problem is it's not just one person's story.
No.
It's many people's story. When we come back, we're going to talk more to Steve about what you can do to maybe mitigate some of this and have those good Christmases and Thanksgivings after you're gone.
It's all coming up next on Life Planning 101 right here on KTX, KWBY. Segment 2 of Life Planning 101. A whole lot of great information to get to, so let's get going, Angela.
Yes, and we have a special guest on the show, Mr. Steve Markin of Trustee Services Group and of Stewardship Council, and we surely appreciate you being on the show again, Steve. Thank you so much. This has been, a great topic. We have done the whole month of November about simplicity, trying to make your life simple. And, one thing that I often see people do is that they have one of two things, is that they don't get their estate planning done because it's too complicated, and they don't have solutions for the hard questions that they know need to be answered, but they refuse to answer, or they make a quick estate plan that leaves a disaster behind them. And you just told us one of those stories of a disaster left behind mom and dad. And, the sad thing is I guarantee you mom and dad would have never set things up that way if they dreamt that could have happened. It's like that
Right.
country song, just give it away, right?
Right.
You might as well just give it away. And, and I think that is a powerful thing, because part of what you do, and I love one of the things you always talk about is the challenge of affluenza, meaning when kids are raised with money, the thought process and how to be able to overcome that. And just like this daughter here that had a love for money, how do you overcome that, and what can you actually do in setting up your estate plan, and more so your legacy. This isn't just your documents, but your legacy to be able to prevent these things from happening.
Yeah, Angela, it's interesting. Wealth itself has no character.
I like that.
But what happens to that wealth depends completely upon the character of the one whose hands is in which it's put. And so it is important, as anybody constructs their estate, is to really draw out, what is the purpose of the wealth? What do you want the wealth to accomplish for those that you really care and love? And then as you look at those that you care and love, who you want to benefit, how will they receive it? Will it ruin them? Or will it be something that ultimately destroys them? There's a story of a young gal that sued her father, incredibly wealthy, sued her father, and I don't know the details of this, how she could even do it, but settled while he was still alive for her share of the estate.
Oh my gosh.
It's $25 million.
Okay.
Well, that's a huge chunk of money
Oh my gosh.
that most would be just fine living out their days. The problem is, it's not enough. So her character, obviously, there's some issues there.
No
and unless
doubt.
she resolves that, we're not going to fix it.
No, that might be an unfixable.
Right. But it's so important to the families that I've had the privilege to work with. There's a couple common denominators that are there. One that I commonly see is they've worked with, and oftentimes it's their financial advisor, who is skilled at drawing out that purpose of wealth. Why is it that we have it? What do we want to accomplish? And really, what is our legacy? What does our family stand for? And when a good financial advisor like yourself, Angela, can draw those deep waters out of a person, then they can go and they capture it within their estate documents. And I can't tell you how often I get just these legal, cold estate documents. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
Those are that legal stuff in there is important. It navigates the wealth, but the story behind the wealth, the purpose of it, that's what's really, really important. So work with a good financial advisor, draw that out, work with that financial advisor, and having that estate plan put in place by the attorney of the client selection, and make sure that overarching story and purpose of the wealth is contained in there.
Right.
And then when that time comes, now what we have is we have a wealth, a clearly defined purpose of that wealth, and we've thought through those people that are going to receive it, how are they going to handle that? Sometimes they need somebody there to guard against themselves and their character. And that's where a trustee can come in.
Sure. And Steve, I want to bring up a point here because we mentioned wealth, and in the eyes of when you're doing estate planning, wealth means one thing, but we work with tons of farmers and ranchers, small business owners that they may have a $10 million estate, but they don't feel wealthy. They're worried about money. They're concerned about it, but if they were to die suddenly, and now the kids inherit $10 million. Got to think about that, and I think that's oftentimes we look at it from an overall perspective, but when it's your own money, you don't feel wealthy a lot of times. And it's very important to realize, to step back from your own situation and take a look at that.
Right, it's so true. And as we come into the holiday season, there's that great movie, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
And you see there the importance of good character and the legacy that was passed down or was being established and was being passed down in and amongst the family. And that's going to serve them well. Good times and bad are sure to come, but the character, as long as we have that good character and are able to manage that wealth appropriately, the family's set up.
That's right.
For generations.
That's right. So when we come back, more from Mr. Steve Markin, our guest from Colorado that is absolutely wonderful. We're so privileged to have him on the show. You don't want to miss it.
Final segment of Life Planning 101, Angela.
Yes, and after all this, be sure to tweet us at KFS Life Planning. Do you think you may have holes in your estate plan? You might not have thought so before today, but after listening to our special guest, Mr. Steve Markin, attorney, trustee, and wealth professional in tax and finance and philanthropy and law, it's just wonderful having you on the show. And one of the things that we feel so privileged to have a professional relationship with you about is the fact that when we help a family create that legacy plan that you talked about in that last segment, we of course go to a great attorney to get things drawn up, but we have you to send those documents to and to tell us, this is working, this is not working. And, that's powerful when you have 3 sets of eyes on your estate planning documents that are often a lot of legal mumbo jumbo that you don't understand, and there's hidden things in there. And I could tell you horror story after horror story of how bad documents are written or implemented. And I know, Steve, you can do the same from a trusteeship perspective on what you've seen. So can you kind of speak to that? Because I think that is a powerful, often overlooked step in all of this that is critical.
Yeah, what we have to remember is that the estate documents, they should reflect your story and your purpose. And so the legal mumbo-jumbo is necessary for certain tax and legal reasons, but the story should nevertheless be there, and it should be reflective of you and the uniqueness of your family. The best estate designs and plans that I see in the best estate documents unpack. They not only have the story, but then they're also thoughtful as to who is going to play their particular roles in the transference of that wealth. As we discussed, oftentimes it is the financial advisor who is skilled and adept and has worked intimately with that family to get their personal story. And that's the driver for their whole estate plan. Well, it's a shame when that wealth transfers that financial advisor's not part of that continuing story. They should be. And so, because they're the ones that drew it out, and they're the ones that the family hand selected. So there's ways that you can keep your financial advisor continue to be involved with the transfer of the wealth from one generation to the next. And it's a legal term, it's called directed trust provisions, where you simply name that you want your financial advisor to continue to be in that role. Oftentimes, the financial advisor cannot serve as trustee. So a trustee is really the overseer of the legacy. I think the best ones are where the trustee is responsible for perhaps the distributions from the trust and the administration of the trust, and overseeing that everything is done according to your wishes, as is set forth in the estate documents. But then they're also working collaboratively with the financial advisor of the family's choosing. The trustee usually comes in after the passing has occurred. So it's very common that the trustee doesn't know that story. So to keep that financial advisor involved is fantastic. It helps.
It helps with the legacy, the actual
Absolutely
passing
does.
of the legacy. And I think that's so powerful. We actually have a personal story that we've worked through Dad's passing, Mom's passing, going to the two children. We were at the table with the attorney in every situation. One of the siblings passed an early age with cancer. So we are now dealing with her husband, and then now we also are dealing with her soon to be, I call them soon to be grown, but they're in college working with her children. And, there's three generations there. And, we've been able to carry on Grandma and Grandpa's legacy because we knew what Grandma and Grandpa wanted. And we spent a lot of time with the family before Grandma and Grandpa passed, not just an onset of here's my financial advisor, do business with them. No, it was a relationship building during that process that makes all of this work. And it's very powerful. It's very powerful to be able to help implement the things that you do become concerned about after you're gone. What will those Christmases and Thanksgivings be like? How can you protect them? How can you make sure that everybody's still filled with joy and watching White Christmas together, and not in separate households, right?
Right.
And that's very powerful. So, Steve, is there one last thing, if and maybe I'm going to hit you sidewise here, but we've only got 1 minute left, is if you could give one piece of advice to any family out there within a couple sentences, what would that one piece of advice be to leave them with?
Boy, yeah, I would say think about it. Think about your family. As you structure your estate, that's your last statement. That is your legacy. Give the time and attention that it richly deserves. Think about your family multi-generationally and work with wise counsel to go and help you to structure it in an appropriate way so that your family is blessed by your wealth and not destroyed by it.
Powerful. Gave me chill bumps. Thank you so much, Steve, for being on the show again. We greatly appreciate it. Have a great one. And again, thank you so much for all you do for Kennedy Financial Services and the families that we work with. God bless you.
God bless you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Calton & Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group, LLC.